and welcome back to the Contemporary Old West channel. In today's episode, you'll hear Chapter 3 of my novel, Hunting Charm, and I'll have another plate of history beans. If you like my writing, I hope you'll visit my author's page on Amazon, linked below. If you're interested in signed copies of Hunting Charm or any of my books, please check out my Patreon page, also with a link below. If you enjoyed the video, I'd be pleased as punch if you'd hit that subscribe and like button. So, without further ado, this is Chapter 3 of Hunting Charm on the Contemporary Old West channel with B.F. Biles. First, if you haven't listened to Chapters 1 and 2, let me encourage you to do so. Those two chapters are available on my YouTube channel. Like any book, it's best enjoyed from the beginning. However, if you want to forge ahead, here's a quick recap. In Chapter 1, the Buffalo Soldier and his bride, Doreen Tarwater, daughter of Abilene, Kansas stockyard owner Theo Tarwater, stows away in a wagon owned by former Buffalo Soldier Cecil Johnson. The reader is also introduced to Cecil's wife, Cynthia, his hired hand, Mr. Sugars, and to a mysterious former slave, Henry Cactus Branch Walker, a man who suffers from physical and psychological wounds inflicted by slave catchers when he was just a boy. In Chapter 2, The Ballroom Brawl, Matt Grayson arrives at a Dodge City saloon to retrieve Brant, who has fallen to the evils of alcohol and moral degradation. As the chapter title indicates, a rollicking fight breaks out. Ultimately, thanks in large part to Brant's inebriated state, Matt prevails and loads Brant into his buckboard. As the chapter ends, they are on their way home to Ulysses, Kansas, so Matt can get Brant cleaned up enough to begin their search for the man Theo Tarwater believes kidnapped and killed his daughter. So without further ado, here is Chapter 3 of my novel, Hunting Charm, a pair of long-barreled Colt pistols. A pair of long-barreled Colt pistols. I do believe you have the trimmings this morning, Hunter. Yes, I reckon I do. Brant's head throbbed and his muscles twitched. You ain't got just a sip so I can calm my nerves, have you? No, sir, you ain't getting another drink, at least for now. Matt chuckled. I might have one just to annoy you. Just kidding. It ain't but 7 in the morning. Only a craven drunk like yourself drinks at this hour. I will, however, allow you to have that bath you were asking about. The water may be a bit chilly, but my nose could use a vacation. Oh, Brant made a painful groan. I reckon I'm ready. I pulled some of your clothes out of your knapsack last night and rinsed them off in the stream. Matt placed a steaming cup of coffee in Brant's hand, chatting pleasantly as he unlocked the leg irons. That ain't whiskey, but I reckon it will calm your shakes some. You look like a rattler still writhing around after getting bull stomped. Would you shut up? Brant slid from the bed of the wagon, wobbled to his feet, then stumbled toward the creek. I reckon I'll throw those clothes you're wearing in the fire as soon as you get out of them. I swear you must have shit your britches multiple times. All right, that's enough. The effort needed to raise his voice made stars sparkle in Brant's eyes. I reckon you're right. One should be discreet regarding another man's incontinence. Still, it does bring up an interesting point. Your situation reminds me of an old mule skinner I once met. I reckon that fella hadn't had a bath in 5 years. The smelly old bastard had some colorful detritus on his apparel. Scientifically speaking, There may be a certain level of dirtiness a feller can get to, a topping off point, so to speak. On the scale of 1 to 10 on the filthiness scale, Brant, I reckon you were right there at the top. Damn it, Matt, my head is spinning and you're just jabbering like a schoolgirl. Why don't you quiet down and let me get my bearings? Matt nodded pleasantly and said no more. The morning sun warmed the prairie, but the early spring air chilled Brant, adding a shiver to his tremens. Nevertheless, when he reached the water, he strode bravely in and set himself down in the icy flow with only a minor yip. Matt flipped a bar of strong-smelling soap wrapped in a rag into Brant's hand, then placed a small bag next to the riverbank. I got them clean clothes hanging on a branch near the wagon. There's a razor in the bag, a pair of trimmers so you can hack off some of that nasty hair. I also left a blanket to wrap up in so I don't have to look at your skinny button, so you don't freeze your balls off. If you want to run off to a town for a drink, the nearest place is about 30 miles north by what they're calling Montezuma, though it ain't a town exactly. Anyways, you'll have to do it in that blanket because I'm taking your clothes. I'll get camp squared away while you clean up. Matt paused, then continued with a more serious tone. I know you're hurting for a drink, but you gotta stop with the liquor. You ain't looking well, Brant. I'm your friend. I didn't come just because your mama asked or because we have that work. I care for you, brother. Brant started to respond. He started to tell Matt he felt the same, but his handsome friend had already walked away. The icy water set his teeth to chattering at first, but surprisingly, after a few moments, his body grew accustomed to the current. Within 15 minutes, he had scrubbed away months of filth. In the bag, along with the razor, he found a mirror and shaving cup. After climbing from the stream and wrapping himself in the blanket, he hacked, scraped, and clipped, removing clumps of matted hair and nips of skin from his face and head. His hands quivered so badly that at one point he cut a nostril and let out a resounding curse. In the distance, hundreds of sparrows flushed from an elm. The tiny birds formed an amorphous aerial mass, orbs and globules rotating in the sky. Brant watched in wonder for nearly 2 minutes, realizing he would not have noticed the birds only a day before. For a moment, he felt thankful to be alive and sober. 30 minutes after entering the shivering cold stream, Hunter Brantley gazed into the small pocket mirror and mentally declared his bathing complete. A stranger, viewing Brant before and after his bath, would not have recognized the shivering, baby-faced man. Despite his throbbing temples, Brant smiled at the change. Sliding into his boots and wrapping the blanket more tightly around his waist, he started back for camp. You're looking almost like your old self, Matt whistled as Brant approached. I reckon a couple of days of your mama's cooking will set you right. Then we can get on over to that colored feller's homestead in Oklahoma. You never did tell me the details of that business. Brant stumbled and nearly fell into a patch of prickly pear dancing around to get his trousers on. Matt looked at his partner for a long moment, then chuckled. I reckon you were too far gone to get much of what I said yesterday. Matt pulled out a bag of tobacco and began rolling a cigarette. Here's the deal in a nutshell. There's this white gal from Abilene who ran off with a colored fella a few weeks back. Matt flipped a cheroot in Brant's direction and started another for himself. Her daddy runs a stockyard in Abilene, and the shame of the deal just about wore him out. He's an important feller. Anyway, this stockman, Theo Tarwater is his name, put up a big bounty on the colored man. Then, about, 2 weeks ago, Some men that went out looking for her came back saying she was dead. Tarwater went plumb crazy. Anyhow, he offered us $500 and expenses if we can bring his daughter's killer in. That's a good chunk of change. You think you can still shoot a pistol? I need your steady hand if we run into trouble. Brant started to speak, then stopped himself, recalling how he had sold his custom Colt revolvers only 2 weeks earlier. I sold my pistols, he murmured. I'm sorry, what? I said I sold my pistols. That was a matched pair, wasn't it? Nice weapons with custom handles, as I recall. Matt spoke the words evenly as he shuffled items around in the wagon bed. Brant, those were given to you by your daddy, weren't they? I wasn't in my right mind. No, I reckon you weren't. If I sold off my daddy's pistols for $15 just so I could get some whiskey, I'd be, well, ashamed. Damn ashamed. If you don't mind my saying so, selling those guns was sorry. I mean, downright dog sorry behavior. Well, you don't need to go on about it. I know I acted like a fool. A fool is putting it lightly, I'd say. More like a mule-stomped fool. Well, don't maybe so, but I feel bad about it. There ain't much more to be done. Sometimes you don't know when to let it go, Matt. Well, sometimes you don't have the brains God gave a pile of horse manure. No, that's just uncalled for. Let's just let it go before I get riled and kick your tail. Brant felt his stomach churning. Oh, yeah, sort of like you kicked my tail yesterday? You're mighty confident. I was drinking yesterday. Now, you know good and well you ain't never been able to take me in a fight. I kicked your tail at least 5 times when we was boys. I guarantee you, today ain't gonna be a repeat of yesterday. Honestly, I'm a little sick about this. You sold what were, well, family heirlooms, and like a mule-kicked nincompoop, sold those pistols for a few shots of liquor. It puts me in mind of the Bible, where that boy sold his inheritance for a mess of pottage. That feller ended up eating out of a pig trough. You're kind of like a pig sometimes, Brant. Brant's temper flared, and with 2 sudden steps he made his move. Before he could throw the first punch, however, Matt spun and with metal flashing, aimed a long-barreled Colt pistol in Matt's face. Brant stumbled back a few steps, yelping as a yucca branch stabbed through his jeans. Dang, you gotta shoot me. I was just gonna whip your tail, is all. Matt glared at his partner for a long moment, narrowing his eyes ominously. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled and gave the gun a spin, offering the butt grip to Brant. Yes, sir, you acted damn stupid selling these here pistols. Matt rummaged through his gear and pulled out a second identical gun. Fortunately, the man you sold them to knows your mama. I reckon how you owe me $25 for buying them back. $25? He only gave me $15. Yes, sir. That's what he said. Matt puffed his cigarette calmly. You can't blame him for making a profit off the deal, especially since a pair like this would likely go for $40 or more if you were to buy them off a dealer. Brant reached out nervously and took the pistol from Matt's hand. He gazed at the weapon, admiring its custom-carved stock and the bluish gleam of the steel barrel. I don't hardly know what to say. You ain't gotta say a damn thing. Well, maybe thank you. I don't expect you to grovel around. Thank you, Matt. Brant released a heavy gust of air, hanging his head in shame. I'm sorry, I was thinking about kicking your tail. No need to apologize. I was goading you because I'm ornery. Truth is, I was enjoying seeing veins pop out on your forehead. I know you were just being ornery like you're prone to do, but still. Well, you can thank me by getting yourself straightened out. I'm gonna. Well, good. And you could put on a belt. I think I'm seeing a bit more than I want to. Giving his breeches a cinch, Brant nodded, smiling now. As he finished dressing, he felt a peculiar sense of optimism, something he hadn't experienced for many months. He pulled the pistol up and aimed it at a nearby mesquite. His hand quivered, but after several deep breaths, he managed to squeeze off a single shot. A limb from the tree broke away and fell to the ground. Good shooting. I wouldn't have thought you could have made that shot with your hand shaking like a rattler's tail. Matt squinted at the tree located about 30 yards away. Thank you. The rangy cowboy didn't mention that he hadn't been aiming at the limb. Thanks for listening to Chapter 3 of my novel, Hunting Charm. I'll have Chapter 4 for you next week. Now it's time for another plate of history beans. On today's plate, we'll be looking at the Colt Paterson No. 5 pistol, the gun that is sometimes called the Texas Colt. First, let me say that I don't specify which Colt pistols Brant carries in Hunting Charm. In early drafts of my novel, I had more technical information, but decided to eliminate those details to concentrate on the story. As I've already stated, for me at least, the Old West is as much about the myths that have sprung up over the past 150 years surrounding those times as it is the reality. The matched pair of pistols Hunter Brantley carries are most likely later model Colt pistols, the Colt Dragoon, manufactured between 1848 and 1860, or perhaps the Colt Army Model 1860. The most famous Old West pistol, the Colt 45 Peacemaker, wasn't produced until 1873, so it doesn't fit the time frame of my story. Nor does the most iconic version of the Colt 45 have the long rifled barrel found on the Paterson, Dragoon, and Army models. The Colt Paterson No. 5 was the first multi-shot pistol used in the Old West. Samuel Colt designed his pistol in 1831 and began producing the Paterson No. 5 in 1836 at a plant, the Patent Arm Company, in Paterson, New Jersey. The original design wasn't perfect. In fact, the U.S. Army bought a small number of the Colt pistols but didn't renew their contract because they felt the guns were too unreliable. To load the first models, one had to remove the cylinder, pour gunpowder into each of the 5 chambers, then add the shot. The gun was initially produced in 28 and 36 caliber models. Loading the gun wasn't easy, and metallurgy at the time wasn't up to modern standards. At times, the gun suffered from blown chambers. The thing could literally blow up in your hand. Still, given the technology of the time, it was a significant step forward. Fewer than 2,500 Colt Paterson pistols were produced, making them very collectible nowadays. One of the pistols sold in 2011 for just under $1 million. Samuel Colt's original business failed. Colt might have ended up penniless, and subsequent manufacture of Colt pistols might have ended there. Except the Paterson No. 5 caught the attention of a Texas Ranger by the name of Jack Coffee Hayes. At the time, Comanche horse soldiers were wreaking havoc on settlements in central Texas. the Pennatica Comanche, under the leadership of Buffalo Hump, more in a later Beans segment, had killed dozens of Texans and had taken women and children captive on several occasions. At one point, Buffalo Hump, with a large group of Comanche warriors, drove all the way to the Gulf Coast, where they ransacked the town of Victoria and completely destroyed a settlement located near present-day Port Lavaca called Linville. Fighting the Comanche was difficult. Comanche warriors were consummate horsemen and fought from horseback. They could fire up to 10 iron-tipped arrows from powerful short bows, the same bows used to kill buffalo, in the time it took to fire and reload the single-shot rifles and pistols of the time. The fledgling Texas government, anxious to protect settlements west of San Antonio, formed the Texas Rangers. The Rangers had varying degrees of success versus Plains tribal units until Jack Coffee Hayes heard about the Paterson No. 5. Hayes realized the pistol might even the playing field against Buffalo Hump and the Pennaticas. He convinced the newly formed Texas government to purchase 1,000 of the pistols. That's how the Paterson got its other name, the Texas Colt. Later, Hayes would work with Colt to improve the Paterson's design, and Samuel Colt's success was assured. The Paterson No. 5 proved its worth on the battlefield almost immediately. One of the more dramatic instances of how this technology turned the tables happened at a place called Walker's Creek, about 40 miles north of present-day San Antonio. In the Battle of Walker's Creek, Jack Hayes and 14 Texas Rangers were confronted by a group of somewhere between 80 and 200 Comanche warriors, depending upon whose account of the thing you're reading. The warriors probably thought Hayes and the Rangers would be easy pickings that day. They were in for a surprise. When they formed their usual wheeling attack formation, Hayes and his men opened fire with their Colt Paterson long-barreled pistols. The Comanche attack soon fell apart. The group of warriors had already stolen a large number of horses, so they turned to leave. But Jack Hayes followed. The ensuing battle led to a hilltop, which was eventually taken and secured by the badly outnumbered Texas Rangers. During the melee, the Rangers escaped with only one man killed and 4 others injured, but the Comanches lost somewhere between 20 and 50 warriors, including Chief Yellow Wolf, who was Buffalo Hump's cousin and a central figure in another notable frontier skirmish, the Battle of Council Bluff. There's lots more that could be said about Samuel Colt and his contribution to the lore surrounding the American Old West. But that's it for now. Thanks again for listening. Hope you'll tune in next time for another chapter from my novel Hunting Charm and another plate of history beans. Thanks again for tuning in to the Contemporary Old West channel with B.F. Biles.